Good Packer Nation morning, guys and dolls. It is finally here. I've got a bird peeking at me in the window. It is finally here. Draft week is upon us. It's Monday. Let me know who you are, where you're coming at me from. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, if you can get through today, we are down to just a handful of days left. Less than a handful of days left. Tommy is here. Good morning, man. Good to see you. Are you stoked? This is my initial question for today. Right here, the sun finally came out. It's been raining. Roger, are you stoked for the draft now? Because it is literally this Thursday. I mean, I'm finding it hard to believe it's already here. PJ is here. Rudy is here as well. From Georgia. Way to go, Rudy. Robert is here. Garrett from Fairbanks, Alaska. Awesome. Mike, good to see you. Tony, good morning. Yeah, good Groupon already. All right. It's good to see yeah, Roger's pumped. Are you stoked? That's my question right off the bat. You can emoji me your thoughts. I am pretty doggone pumped right now. We're going to talk more about it. Nick is here from Iowa. Good to see you. Tim says hi to Packer Nation. PJ is going to be there in Philadelphia. I wish I was in Philadelphia this weekend. That would be a great time. Enjoy it, my friend. Mike, Andy, thank you. Like the shirt, he said. It says talk nerdy to me. So talk nerdy to me, folks. Rick is nervous about this one, Rick. Some concerns, I think, in Packer Nation. You're always a little bit nervous. I'm totally stoked myself. But this is a Packer team that has some questions now. We're going to talk about that today as well. Answer some of your questions if you want. Brian is here. Terry is here, says go Pack, go. I got this go Pack, go feeling in my... Today I was just kind of... It was ringing in my mind. Virginia, Jerry. Jerry's ready for Thursday, Friday, Saturday already. Richard, Ryan... What's up? We're just talking about the draft. I mean, what else can we talk about? It's finally the Monday of. I'm having a little hot beverage with some caffeine to make sure that that I don't fall asleep on you guys, which isn't ever going to happen anyway. But Jeff says hi to Packer Nation. Roger is mentioning, I don't know if everybody caught this, but we threw this post up the end of last week, that the Packers reportedly... are pretty doggone ticked off that Ted Thompson did not lay out the cash to retain TJ Lang. Anybody have any thoughts on that one? I mean, I pretty much know how we feel. Chad's got to run the table part 2. Happy birthday, Andy. Andy's got a birthday on draft week. That can't get any better than that. You have a birthday on Monday. Thursday, you got the draft starting. You got a whole weekend full. Yes, Virginia, it is like Christmas for Packer fans. But yeah, the exit of TJ Lang, he had the injury at the end of the season. I think that hurt his stock with us a little bit. But more and more, it just seems like, and everybody put a happy birthday up for Andy while we get started on Monday. Why not, right? It's a good way to begin the show. Daniel... Yeah, and frankly, we saw this happen last year. Last year it happened right before the season began with Josh Sitton getting let go, not being retained. However, we had a guy that could just fill in, and it worked out. Is it going to work out that way this time? Now we've added one more hole that we've got to fill. And for crying out loud, our offense could be set. I mean, we really could be very well set. Other than maybe the running back position with some question marks, if we had retained TJ Lang, we would be sitting pretty on offense and ready to go into this draft doing a lot of work on the defensive side, which I hope we do anyway. But yeah, and Jeff is mentioning too, this story came out, this was a McGinn story. And good point taken. McGinn is so grumpy anyway. I mean, he is just pissed off half the time, and he hates Ted Thompson. However, I know a lot of you guys are right along with him in that. We got Quebec on the line. Good to see you. Matthew. Cool French spelling, I guess, on that. Pretty cool. So yeah, and we have questions to be answered. And I want you to give me a thumbs up right now if you don't think the answer is on the roster, if you think we have to go out in the draft and get a guy that's going to basically start for us. I think the team is convinced that and we heard Aaron Rodgers reflect this, that they don't need to get a guy in the draft. They're going to be able to replace TJ Lang with Murphy or Lucas. The question then, and I know Brian over at Railbird Central has talked about this several times, and no one really goes along with him except possibly me, to kick Bulaga inside and get Spriggs on the field now. I think getting your best players on the field, and I see those angry faces. Didn't mean to start off on an angry note on a Monday during draft week. So Grayson is here, good to see you. But it is a big time question mark leading up to the draft. And what I really want to know today is, and I really want to talk about, is where in this draft, I think at this point we have to consider getting either an offensive tackle to convert or a guard, but what round of the draft do we need him in? Now, we did our simulation it basically blew up on us last week because I spent the entire weekend, I still haven't gotten up and running, but we are hopefully in better shape now because I've replaced basically everything in the system, everything on the line, all the junctions, and took down a governor box that was old outside. So hopefully things are going to run really well now. But with that said, our simulation, we ended up taking TJ Watt right away in the first, not wasting time with him. But we picked up Joe Mixon, the running back, in the second round and kind of left ourselves in a bit of a conundrum as far as cornerback goes. One of the things I think we learned through this simulation is that if the Packers don't get one of the stud cornerbacks in round 2, it is going to get thin fast. I think that run comes in round 2. Chad Reuter, I've got his mock in front of me, his latest one, I believe, from just a few days ago. And he's got only 4 cornerbacks going out in the first. But we know that if we run all the way through that second round, it's going to get thin for us. We've seen this, and I've seen this reflected as a pattern in all the simulations I've run. So I don't look to see, there has been talk early on about picking Forrest Lamp first overall, or, not first overall, but with our first round pick at 29, I have been pretty much dead set against that from the beginning. Roger thinks Thompson has Alzheimer's. I've been against that. I think late rounds, I think third at the earliest. I would like to see us maybe get, maybe in the fourth is really the round I would be looking at if we could maybe pick up, and one of the guards are still on the table, on the board, or get an offensive tackle, which is how we kind of like to do it. Get a guy that can play inside as well, has played inside. Guy like maybe Elfline, I don't know if he'll be available that far down, but there are some guys out there, and I think we're going to need one at this point. I just don't think you can go into training camp. Now, we do have the undrafted free agents. They're going to bring some in, but I just don't know that we can rely on that. With basically the health of Aaron Rodgers is on the line, folks, and that's why this is important. Nick is pumped for Thursday. Kevin King would be a great pick. Reuter has him going off the board earlier in the first, along with Wilson, of course, Lattimore. But in this particular case, and it starts to look maybe more and more likely that Marlon Humphrey might be around, do the Packers go cornerback 1 and come back with either a running back, which I think is also a position of need, or get an edge rusher in round 2? These are the questions that are going to be answered very quick. We've sort of gone over it with a fine-tooth comb. We've run through simulations. We've talked about the different mocks that are out there. We've talked about what your opinions are. And Andy, for one, says he thinks Kyle Murphy's going to be okay. Now, there's a guy that, we spent some draft capital on and has a year under his belt now, which is good. Looked fairly good, I think. Is he going to be plug and play? I don't know. Bryce is here. He's been waiting for this one. Bryce is on the fence about this team right now. So, Bryce, for your sake and all of Packer Nation, we are hoping this is a fantastic draft. How do you get inside the mind of Ted Thompson? Now, you look at, it's the Monday of the draft. And Ted Thompson has made it clear. There is a guy, they have their eye on a guy. They have a guy in that slot that they're looking at. Good morning, John. Who is that man right now? That's the question. And I've got, you get these inklings that Ted Thompson and the Green Bay Packers may be high on a guy like TJ Watt, maybe higher than some other teams are. We've talked about it in the past. He looks like a Ted Thompson kind of a guy because he squares up so much with, your Clay Matthews of the world. But another thing, last week when Thompson got on his press conference, I made note of his quote that the Packers believe that good people make good players. Now, there's two sides of that coin. Number one, if you look at a guy like TJ Watt, he fits that bill. I mean, he fits it to a T. He's a leader. He's a high character guy. He's a hard worker. He's a lunch pail kind of a player. He's going to play hard every down. Waylon says this guy, we might as well take comments right now on Watt because I honestly am getting this vibe that the Packers are higher on him than maybe even some other teams are. And I know some out in Packer Nation, you guys have been on here before and you have a legitimate case to say maybe he shouldn't be our guy right away in round one. But one thing I will say that I've seen reflected again and again seems a pattern. I don't think he makes it to us in round two. And Kelly, I am going to read your comment because he says, TJ all the way, unless Reuben Foster drops. And there's the flip side of the coin, is it not? Reuben Foster, I don't see making it to us. He's a top 10 prospect. I see him going out at the latest in the teens. But he has these character questions. One more that just came out, last week? That yes, he did fail a drug test at the combine. James wants a cornerback instead, and that's a good argument. Now, I've said in the past, if Reuben Foster drops to us, I wouldn't mind Ted Thompson trading up to get him, to be quite honest. And I've been a trade back into the second round kind of a guy. We've got a late first round pick that's going to have some value. There's going to be a team looking at a player. There are these matches. And that team and those players, they're going to get thinner and thinner in round two. And I think we're going to have some trade options. But if we stand pat, or frankly, if we can go get Reuben Foster, I would be willing to trade. I would be willing to trade up for him. And the reasons that I've mentioned before. I think a stud at inside linebacker changes this defense even more than getting a number one safety. I think a number one safety helps a great deal. Don't get me wrong. But I think from the front to back, if we can get a stud inside linebacker, an interior guy who's good against the run, who's going to be able to bring pressure when we need it. And frankly, here's the discussion that I wanted to have. I'm glad you brought this up, Kelly, because this is a discussion I wanted to have with you guys. And I'm on the fence about this because we've got Ted Thompson on the one hand who says, we believe that good people make good players. Now, on the other hand, NFL.com had a little article just a little bit ago, I guess maybe it was last week, with Thomas Dimitroff from the Atlanta Falcons. And he says, we are not looking for angels in the draft. We're not looking for angels. And I've said in the past, on defense, until the Packers, I've talked about this for years, until the Packers got Mike Daniels, they didn't have any nasty. And a defense needs nasty. That should be the theme of today's show. A defense needs nasty. And Reuben Foster would bring that. So we've got these sort of cycles. And I think, if you're talking about inside linebacker, if a guy like Foster is there, you're not going to get another. It's not a premier position. It's not a deep draft for inside linebackers. But I think he is a game changer. I think he's a game changer. And when you have a game changer on the board and you're not sure and you might need to jump up a few to get him, I would not be opposed. I would be very happy if that man ends up in green and gold. But again, when I say I'm on the fence, it's because I don't know, is there a trend and a pattern here? This guy has had some issues. And Rick is asking, can he stay off the pipe long enough? And these are questions that come about. But these are the same questions that last week in particular brought his name back up in terms of the later round picks. Most of the folks, when the little incident happened at the Combine, didn't see his draft stock hurting much at all. And Pamela, I'm going to talk about that's a good comment as well. Didn't see his draft stock hurting as that much. But now we've got this, what looks almost like a pattern. Somebody's going to take a chance. How big of the chance is it? But is he at this point now? We see guys drop on draft day. And I've got to tell you, even though I don't think he's going to make it to 29, I mean, that is just, it would be ridiculous, I think, to think that. But I got my eye on Reuben Foster as one of the guys that might take a tumble on day one. And we had the comment made, I needed to mention it, that Clinton Dix has a little bit of nasty. And I think in his play, yes. I mean, but, Clinton Dix, I mean, he lives up to his name. He is just so fired up. I love the man. Don't get me wrong. Pro Bowler. He was one of the guys that we kind of all had our eye on. Remember, it was him or Pryor. Packer Nation was torn about. We got Clinton Dix. We got the right guy. But I don't see him as bringing nasty as much. I mean, you look at a Mike Daniels. He is out there like it's a street brawl. And up front, let's say we get Mike Daniels. I think Francois is going to be a fantastic addition to our run defense in particular. He's going to help us against Dallas. He's going to help us against the Atlanta Falcons. He's going to help us again. The Minnesota Vikings got to be going out there trying to make sure that they have an answer at running back. The Seattle Seahawks now with Eddie Lacy. And my computer is about to die, but that's okay. And Donald is making the comment, though, it's hard to like him as much when you see that, he failed a drug test. This is a flag, and it may not be the biggest red flag out there because, for crying out loud, look at how many players don't in the off season imbibe, for lack of a better word. How important is that to you? Now, to me, the issue is availability. Is if you get a guy who's got a trend like that, and if he's going to get himself suspended, now he's not available. And at the same time, I completely agree. He's not going to make it to the second round, but I am eyeballing him for a tumble. I just don't think he can quite make it to 29. I mean, frankly, I got to look at the Lions at 21 and think there's absolutely no way he gets past them. They could even be eyeballing TJ Watt for all I know. We've also got the Cowboys in there. That's another question we need to talk about today. Gary says, can't play if you're in jail. And we've had this issue in the past. We had the Johnny Jolly situation. Now we've got availability issues this year. Again. Right, Donald, got to be on the field to make plays. So I think it comes down to, if I'm looking at the situation, I've got to assume no Reuben Foster. You're looking at the way Ted Thompson leads the Packer organization and what he thinks is important. That, to me, is a tick in the negative column. You look at our draft position, and that's got to be a tick in the negative column. I'm looking at TJ, and I'm concerned. Do you think, folks, the Cowboys have to be going after defense in the first round. Yes, they definitely could use to bolster their defensive backfield. So I would think cornerback, they're going to be very high on the idea of cornerback, and I think Reuter here has them. Who does he have them getting? Quincy Wilson right off the bat? Good player. But are they eyeballing? Who else is eyeballing TJ Watt? Is he a guy that they think they can pick up in the second? I do believe that if the Packers trade back and can stockpile some picks, that they would still be able to get Watt early in the second. I do see him, generally speaking, as a pattern. I see him going generally in the tens to teens of the second round. And again, we don't know. But I feel like there are general managers out there that are really keeping their eye on him. and feel somewhat the way the Green Bay Packers feel. I mean, remember, this is a guy whose brother is the best defensive player anybody's seen in a long time. So he's got draft stock partly because of that. Some say that this is, that's the overhype. And Garrett says he's surprised Tease Tabor isn't mentioned more. So do we go cornerback 1 and try to get TJ in too? Some folks think he's going to be available. I do not. I really don't. I don't see it. But let's talk while we're at it. I did want to kind of eyeball the NFC North. Remember, the schedule came out. We've got a tough one. We start tough. We end with like the fourth quarter of this season isn't like 3 out of 4 road games. I don't have the schedule in front of me. And the draft starts Thursday. I'm not sure what time. Somebody can put up the time for you. And we've got a lot of conversation. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the computer here because it's going to die on me. But we got a lot of Joe Mixon conversation out there right now. And I think part of that is because we polled and picked him last week. And we picked him in round 2. Now, I will say for me, if Joe Mixon is around in round 3, I am very tempted at that point. I don't think he makes it through round 4. I know some do. I just don't see it. But for me, for my money, because now I don't have to be commissioner anymore, I don't have to kind of try to take my thoughts out of it, I don't pick Mixon in round 2. I think he has value there as a player, but again, number one, I got to be thinking about, thanks for putting up the time on that. I appreciate that. And whoever asked the question, I'm sure appreciates it too. And we talked about this last week, but it seems like everybody still wants to talk about Mixon. Either go get him or no way. I mean, it's a situation that is very black and white, I think, for most people in Packer Nation. And Roger thinks he drops to the 8th. Kamara in the 3rd, I think, would be a good pick. We've got some good comments coming up. I'm going to go ahead and read them. So go ahead and throw up your thoughts on Mixon. Versatile. This guy could be considered the best running back in this year's draft. And Pamela says, I think if we don't get him, we'll regret it. And it may be an NFC North team that we have to face, twice a year. So yeah, very interesting. This is an interesting draft for these questionable character guys. You've got a guy like TJ Watt who is just, he's just pristine. I mean, as far as that goes, I'm not saying anybody's perfect, but he's kind of the poster child for a character guy. He just, does his work. He does it with a little bit of an edge, a little bit of attitude. He's still got developing to do. And I think the fit is there, guys. Put a thumbs up if you think the fit is right. And LB's got Kevin King. Now, and Kevin King, I think, could very well not be available. I don't expect him. I think he'd be a great pickup as well. But these are the final days. What is in Ted Thompson's mind right now? He has a name on a board. We know that. Just a couple days before. And they're going to keep an eye on that guy. If that guy goes off the board, then they're going to have to rethink it. But more and more, I'm starting to believe. Now remember, a few years ago, when we picked up Clinton Dix, we talk a lot about how Ted Thompson can really surprise us, kind of blindside us with his first round picks in particular. And there is that. I mean, and that's where your Forrest Lamp, which a good player. No, nothing against him, but geez, for our situation, I'm not for it. But at the same time, when we picked Clinton Dix, most of the people in Packer Nation had him high on their list. He was either the guy they wanted, we were hoping was still going to be around. We were watching Calvin Pryor go off the board. If I'm recalling right, was a guy at the time. Not a Pryor guy. And we were right. I mean, so there is the possibility, because we know our team, and we know Ted Thompson I mean, Ted Thompson has a track record now. And so is TJ the guy that he really has his eye on right now, that he's going to watch, and he's going to say, listen, if this kid is still there, he's our guy. I am starting to lean toward thinking that might be the case. There are some other folks, I mean, part of what factors into that is because it's not like Ted Thompson is going to sit there and say, if we draft an edge rusher in round 1, we're not going to have an answer at cornerback by the end of this draft. Okay? There are enough cornerbacks, and I think round 2 is a round that I would really like to see us go after one. But I think round 2, there's still going to be some really good names on the board. Add to that. Now, if you're trying to get in the mind of Ted Thompson, and I think maybe it was Roger that just said his head hurts when he tries to do it. But think about it, folks. Do you really believe that Ted Thompson thinks that Randall and Rollins and Gunter are as bad as all of us think? I mean, and I don't. I mean, I've said I think that they're going to be okay. I think they're going to be fine. I think the injuries had a ton to do with it, and the fact that Gunter got thrown in with Julio Jones and Des Bryant, and that's tough. So do I think we need a cornerback? Yes, I do. But I think we can wait till the second round for sure. And as I've said before, just think what a better pressure package will do for our cornerbacks. But I don't think Ted Thompson thinks the way we do typically. And my big concern is, if you look at what really happened last season at the cornerback situation, we lost Sam Shields. That was the first domino, guys. We lost Sam Shields, and we had to ride out an entire season with no Sam Shields. Now, in the draft, we're not going to get him. I mean, the kid's going to be a rookie. But I think if we can get a guy that can be a legitimate replacement for Sam Shields, or a mix of guys, because we brought House back, I think that our defense is going to actually be okay. Now, we've got to make up for 7.5 Julius Pepper sacks as well. That's why I think we need an edge rusher or a linebacker that's an absolute stud. And Garrett's saying Julio made our DBs look like high schoolers. And that's true. Part of this is, we were hoping for Randall and Rollins to take that second-year leap, and we didn't really see it. However, there were games, I mean, you got to give them a nod. I was at the Seahawks game, and nobody was complaining about how Randall and Rollins played in that game. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But if I'm in the mind of Ted Thompson, which might be a scary place to be, I believe that they are patient about the cornerback situation. I believe that they let the draft come to them in that situation. I think, the couple things we know about Ted Thompson, he likes to draft those big guys right off the board early. He is willing to trade up. When he's been willing to trade up, we're looking at a guy like Clay Matthews. And I think TJ fits the bill. I really do. Now, how much, that leads us to another question, folks. And we have to be, it's so close to the draft. We've got to be honest and make sure that we temper our enthusiasm, right? Because number one, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. There may be another team that's got TJ on their board, and there's only less than a handful picking after the Green Bay Packers. So the odds are against it. You've got hundreds of players and only one TJ Watt. You've got the Packers picking 29. We need to temper our enthusiasm. However, I do think the fit is there. And, we've gone kind of back to the top of the order now. We've talked about some later picks. And Matt is mentioning Tack is better than TJ. So you can thumbs up Matt if you agree, because again, now he's another guy that I very much would expect, and I've seen, having run through some simulations, oftentimes I see him off the board. That's a guy that I think could go to the Cowboys. Although I do see the Cowboys looking long and hard at cornerback right off the bat. But But yeah, let's talk through it a little bit because, I mean, I wasn't able to keep my stuff up here like I wanted to. But, you know, number one, if you're going, let's go to the NFC North, you got to start talking about the Minnesota Vikings right off the bat because they lack that first round pick. What are they going to do? Are they going to try to trade back up into the first round? But they've basically lost some ground on their draft with the trade for Bradford. I think, you know, obviously for them, it looks like it's a pretty darn good move, but you know that they were wishing Teddy Bridgewater could have stayed healthy and they could have a pick in this year's draft. Do they try to move up? I don't know that and I'm not sure of what their comp situation is, but you know they've got to be looking for a running back at some point. They've had offensive line problems for a second year in a row. They've tried to fix some of their offensive line woes, and basically are on a wait-and-see approach as to whether it worked. They've got the quarterback situation still. With Bradford, is he going to be available? Is he not? Is he even going to be able to compete for a starting role? Is it going to be Bradford for 2017? I expect, and I know Phil's on here, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. I think it's going to be Bradford for 2017. Now you add to that, Bradford's had a second year in the system, might feel a little more comfortable, and if they can get the running back situation handled, then, you know, their defense is fairly intact, and they may be able to pick up an extra defensive player or two that could be fairly good for them. This is a team that, you know, started the year 5-0 and then kind of fell apart, but they lost a lot of close games. And we've got the when is the draft comment again. You can go through the comments. I know there's a bunch of them, but it's this Thursday, and I think it said 8 o'clock probably Eastern, 7 Central, somewhere around that. And we're going to be going live with Total Tailgating. We're going to be making a 40 burger before the draft. We'll be going at 7 Central, I think. I'll double check the times and make sure we finalize that for you. It's going to be delicious. I can't wait. It's going to be fun to make, too. It's going to be fun to cook with you guys. That's what we're going to do right before the draft. And then you're welcome, Danny. And then... And then we are going to go live after the first pick from Packer Nation. So it's going to be a big week. I'm going to get everything squared away. I might be a little bit behind. Obviously, I could do almost nothing over the weekend, but it's going to be a big week. We're going to have a lot of stuff, and it's going to be a ton of fun. A lot of it's going to have to do with just having you guys jump on, make comments, talk back and forth. Let's talk through this thing just like we're doing today. I've got a fairly decent feeling about TJ. And Richard is asking, are we trading Hundley? That's another question. Now, guys, what if we could... I just don't see being able to get the kind of value out of Hundley right now. And I've mentioned in the past, you give the guy another preseason. Next year, we're going to have a ton of comp picks. We may max out our comp picks at 4 next year. And if you were able to trade Hundley on top of that, you could really be sitting pretty for next year's draft. So... you know, are you patient? Do you wait around to try to get your, you know, it's kind of like trying to sell your car. You know, if you can fix it up, get it nice, be patient, and make more money on that car. Or you can just sell it as it is, get it out while you got your chance. Maybe you don't make as much money, but you still get some value off of it. Yeah, and Steve is mentioning, you know, even this year, we've got 8 picks this year. So what if you could bundle trading Hundley and one of our picks and go get a Reuben Foster? You know, flip-flop your ones with somebody. You'd probably have to throw a pick in and trade a player. But I'm with you, Tyson. You know, for the most part, I don't think we've got 8 picks this year, you know, which isn't huge. It doesn't make us feel super confident that we could say trade up in the first round. I do think if we wanted to trade up, you know, if we wanted to trade up in the second, get TJ early in the second, we could swap out and pull that off. And I do believe that Ted Thompson, this is the thing, and Ted Thompson, it's interesting the way he talks about his draft, okay? I don't know if you heard the press conference last week, but I wanted to ask him a question. And if you saw the press conference, you'll remember him saying, because people would ask about his decision making, and Oftentimes he would use mathematical terms to talk about it. If the math works out for this, and I forget what exact term, it might not have been that, but it was basically, he made it sound like the system gives you you input the information and out comes the name. But then they'd ask him another question about, what happens if your guy goes off the board? Then what do you do? And he said, well, I just do whatever feels good at the time. Did anybody pick up this sort of dichotomy with Ted Thompson? That, I wanted to ask him, Ted, how much of this process is you believing in your system that the algorithm works? If you plug in the right numbers and you plug in the right players after you've done your math, that the output is correct. How much do you trust that? And what percentage of it is this what you're saying when you say, I just do what makes me feel good at the time? And Andrew says he's just blowing smoke. I didn't think he was at all. It was a very interesting comment to me because, he could be saying what makes me feel good, and it's basically whatever that mathematical formula kicks out for me. But to me, there is somewhat of a split, and you guys will be happy for me saying this, I'm sure, a split personality. Getting pulled one way and pulled the other because you believe in your system. The work that happens is that's where the rubber meets the road as far as I'm concerned. The draft itself is really how other teams, the other teams factor into it. And when your time comes, your name should be there. And if it's not, you have to go to the next guy. We call ourselves a best player available team. And that was of interest to me. How much is Ted Thompson just going on a gut feeling? And how much of it is, listen, we did the proper procedure and the system gives us the answer that we want? I think this is a year where that could be challenged because you've got this idea, and Matt's saying Hundley's not going to get traded this year. I don't think so either. However, I do think if they can get what they want, again, if they've got a guy they've got their eye on and they don't have the draft stock to get it, they know this guy's not going to be available at 29. I think they might be tempted to package a pick, swap out first, and do a trade, get a deal done. And Thompson has traded quarterbacks in the past. And I think that's how we ended up getting Clay Matthews. So it's not that he doesn't have these tricks up his sleeve. There have been times when I wonder if he can actually get deals done from time to time. I think he stands pat. So I do believe that, personally, I think we pick at 29. I'd be somewhat surprised, but I do see in the mix that idea of trading back into the second because we've got value at 29 and Ted Thompson likes to stockpile the picks. I think that fits his MO. I think he's got his eye on that, and honestly, I think it might be the ideal way to go if, in fact, the Packers really have their eye on TJ Watt. And part of that is going to depend on who comes off the board before. Josh wants to get a deal done. But this is becoming a very interesting draft because then you've got the problem children of this year's draft. You got your Reuben Foster. How far is he going to tumble? I've got my eye on him as one that may take a bit of a tumble. You've got your Joe Mixons. How long is he going to stick around? Are teams really going to be true to their statements or true to their board if they're a team that took him off the board? And Benjamin is saying, then you've got the other teams that we've got our eye on. You've got the Lions out there. Looking for an inside linebacker, looking for an outside linebacker. And Roger wants to get this done and play some football. I am with you, man. It can't come soon enough. But I'm glad that the Packers are going to get on the board on Thursday. And while I'm already a little bit over time from what I wanted to do, LB has got his eye on Vince Beagle. Does anybody else have a heart for Vince Beagle out there as a possible 4th, 5th rounder? And there are other questions, guys. What about the wide receiver position? I mean, Ted typically does pay wide receivers, but we've got Devontae Adams, needing to get a contract. We've got Jordy Nelson. He's getting up there. We've got our, our long of tooth wide receivers in Nelson and Cobb. We've got our up-and-comers in Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison doing some good things last. We've got to make decisions about Jeff Janis. I think wide receiver cannot be overlooked in this year's draft. We might be able to sneak by this year and then with extra picks next year get that done. But if you think we need a wide receiver in this draft, go ahead and hit that heart button right now. John wants Vince in the 5th or 6th. I think he might make it the 5th, but I think somebody's going to take a long, hard look at him after his Senior Bowl performance. And I'd be surprised, maybe be a 6th rounder. I would definitely take him. And some love out there right now because we still have the running back situation, the running back question. And Joe Mixon has been all the rage in terms of debate. But what about a guy named Samaje Perine? I think he's going to be a great running back. I've got a feeling he's going to hurt us in the NFC North elsewhere, and we're not going to get him. And the way that I'm looking at the draft, if you go, and I have seen folks, and in fact, I think it was for the Packers, having Perine available in round 3. I think that would be a nice little present for Ted Thompson to wrap up for Packer Nation if that happened. Because we do have question marks. And nothing against Ty Montgomery, but if we could add, if we could add a good running back, if we could add a downhill runner, if we could add maybe a first and second down guy, and then we could, split them out and get him and Ty on the field at the same time as well, I think it would be helpful. But the offense can only score so many points. We have to have a defense that's going to give them extra possessions, and I just don't think we have what we need just yet, which is why in this year's draft, I am hoping we draft heavy defense. If you're with me, throw a thumbs up. If you are, if you're wanting to draft heavy defense in this year's draft, I think that's where most in Packer Nation are at. It's that we're at that point. I mean, it's Monday, and the draft starts on Thursday. We're this close. We are this close. And you talk about it, now we've got JB. It's a good question. You had to bring it up, didn't you? Because there are still free agents available out there. Can we alleviate some of the stress on our offense and then go with a heavy defense? John wants heavy defense. And LeGarrette Blount is one of the names that keeps swirling around. Honestly, I'm not sure the LA Raiders are looking for an answer out of Marshawn Lynch. He said he wanted to come back. They thought it was pretty much a done deal. He's excited to play for them, but nothing has happened. And the Raiders have kind of made it clear that they would like to know what's going on before the draft, obviously. And Bryce is asking, do I think Ted Thompson dropped the ball in free agency if he doesn't do anything else, which is likely? Good question. And, you got to go back, right? We were pretty pissed off when talks broke off with Cook because we needed that tight end position. Not only did we get Martellus Bennett, but we added Lance Kendricks. We got Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is stoked. He's already talking about the 12 personnel package. Not only does it allow you to run or pass, but it is a balanced formation with a single setback, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers. It's a very balanced formation, which wreaks havoc on the defense. So in terms of offensive free agency, I think Thompson hit a home run with Martellus Bennett. I know there are still some questions about him a little bit. I love his sort of freewheeling attitude, to be honest. I think he's going to be, and Aaron Rodgers seems to enjoy it as well. You've got, off-season workouts beginning. These guys are getting together, talking with each other. They're all excited about what Martellus can bring. And then you can add to that, either your Richard Rodgers or your Lance Kendricks. And I think that was an upgrade for our offense. Now, on offense, you've got to factor in then the the loss of Eddie Lacy and the loss of TJ Lang. And did he drop the ball letting TJ Lang go? And I've got to say yes on that one. I've got to. I mean, TJ was such a Packer person. And defensive side, my battery's running low. I'm going to have to let you guys go. Defensive side, what did we do? We went out, we got Francois, which I think is a nice addition. I think we're going to be very glad to have him on our team. I really do. We brought back Devon House, which is one of those better than nothing kind of signings, I think. And I do think House is going to, again, he's going to flourish in our defense because he knows it. It's going to, apparently Blake has a birthday as well. We got two of them on. Birthday boys. Happy birthday, Blake. So overall, you look at this and you want to say, hey, wow, this is the most active Ted Thompson's been in free agency. But wait a minute, look at all the guys we've lost, right? So I wouldn't say necessarily that he completely dropped the ball. I was looking for him to sign one more. I think he is looking forward to doing something with Aaron Rodgers' contract. So while I'm not entirely happy with it, I think, especially you let Micah Hyde go, you let Julius Peppers walk, which was expected. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he necessarily dropped the ball. I would give him more like a C grade. And I'm balancing that. I kind of have to grade Ted Thompson on a curve because most years he does nothing, And the reason for that is most years he signs back most of his guys. Wasn't able to do that this year. So there's my comment on that. I thought it was a good question. Blake wants Desmond King. Bryce has got a C grade as well. Yeah, I mean, I can't overlook what he did do. But I do think we should do more. I think that running back situation could be helped a great deal. But I expect him to be looking at the draft for that. Well, folks, I'm going to run out of battery here, unfortunately. I've been plugging myself in later. I'm running the camera at a higher resolution. Everything seemed to go fine. By tomorrow, I should have everything set back up again, and we're going to have a ton of fun going into this draft. So I will be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking all about it. Same pack time, same pack place. We're going to have some different special editions this week. So stick around, stay with me. When you see that, you can click on the video and follow it, if you will, to get notifications when I go live. We will be doing it a bit more, but mostly we just do it that one time a day, and then we have some special editions on the weekend or weekday evenings if cool stuff comes around like the draft. So we went over a little bit of the first round. I guess we never really got talking about other draft needs for the Lions and the Bears in this year's draft, but we'll definitely get to that. Benjamin, the 4-round simulation got killed again this weekend, so I will figure out what we're going to do on simulation. We might do a quick 3-round or a quick 5-round all together, but I got to figure it out because I'm still putting everything together, and I lost the entire weekend, my friend. So I apologize for that, but I think we did get a feeling. One of the things that I really thought was valuable was, basically we saw where that cornerback situation is going to get really thin, and I think that's an important thing for Packer Nation to keep its eye on. So I will I will figure something out for that because I have another site where we can make trades I'm looking at really closely, and if the camera keeps working the way it is right now, I think we will lessen the upload problem. My upload is actually improved slightly. My download speed is 2 or 3 times better than it was when we talked to you guys on Friday. So we'll see what we can do about that because I would love to go through another simulation. And we were just getting to the part that I thought was critical when we saw the boards start to get thin on us, I think. And I think that's where the rubber hits the road, and I think that's where Ted Thompson shines. It's tougher for us to do that because those names they're not as familiar, and we don't have as much tape on those guys that we've seen. So, folks, peace out, Johnny. Daniel, good to see you. I hope you have a great day. It's Monday what better Monday to have in the middle of the off season than the Monday of the NFL draft. I'm stoked for it. I hope you guys will jump on and talk with me about it again tomorrow. Same pack time, same pack place. Go Pack.